Welcome to the Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers. As a double board certified family and obesity medicine physician with over 12 years of experience in medicine, I teach motivated individuals how to achieve their desired quality of life while preventing and reversing chronic diseases. It's tea time. On today's episode of the Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast, I have a special guest. Dr. Sherita Gaskins-Tillett is a board-certified OBGYN, mother, wife, wellness enthusiast, and event planner. After several years of trying to meet the demands of family, career, and community, she found herself exhausted and lost in her own life. Fortunately, a well-timed vacation provided the awakening she needed to realize that the life she was living was not sustainable. She returned home on a journey of self-discovery that resulted in a reordering of her priorities and a complete overhaul of her personal life. Using her own life experiences, Dr. Sherita is on a mission to empower women to create lives that they love and helps overwhelmed women physicians connect with like-minded sisters, rediscover their priorities, reclaim the reins of their lives, and find balance so that they can live with more joy, authenticity, and purpose. She is also the host of Level Up Live, a weekly show that celebrates women physicians who are owning their power and changing lives inside and outside of the exam room. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sherita. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'm going to have you start really just by sharing your story with us. You shared a bit in your bio there, but what motivated you to make a career change to prioritize your own health and wellness?
Well, I would say, first of all, I don't know that it was a conscious decision at the time. So, don't give me more credit than I deserve. But really what happened was, my life had gotten out of control. Really, I looked around and I didn't recognize my life. And I realized that in the span of about 18 months, I had gotten married, had a baby, and moved. So if you look at those life stressor charts, all of those things are on there. And then I believe my grandmother died in that same time frame as well.
Mm.
So, lots of change, lots of upheaval. And I was so stressed out. I did not recognize my life. And then it was like I didn't even have time to think about my next thing. All I could do was think about the next task in front of me, but no higher level thoughts like, what do I want my life to look like? Or am I happy? What's going on? So what I found is that on the outside, everything looked to be almost perfect. But on the inside, I was really struggling. And fortunately, as I mentioned in the bio, I had the opportunity to go on vacation. And it was then as I was sitting on the beach and, the breeze is blowing and the waves are going. And it's like, wait a minute, I actually have a second to think. I can hear my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And my thoughts were, whose life is this? And what
That's
do
profound.
I need to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do I need to do to get to a better place? I'm not well. That was the biggest, takeaway from that moment is I am not well. What does it mean to be well? And what can I do to get well?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about your story, one is that you took the time to go on vacation, because in the midst of being so busy and juggling so much, we often don't. And you hear about these studies that come out about how little vacation Americans in general that we actually take. And a lot of times we have these jobs and we have vacation days. We just,
Yes.
Are fearful of using them for a variety of reasons. And then in the meantime, we get overwhelmed, we get burnout, and all of these things begin to take a toll. So good for you for taking that vacation.
But honestly, I think ever since I finished residency, I've always believed in my vacations.
That's
quarterly,
good. Yeah.
Quarterly, because I did need that. I recognize I need that to refill my cup,
Right, right. Yeah, and that's great. And that, that's so important that, we all remember that even if it's, you don't even have to go far a lot of times. I love the outdoors. So even for me, just going on a hike or going spending a weekend in the woods is soothing for me just to, like you said, listen to what those thoughts in your mind are telling you and kind of get all that other day-to-day noise out.
Right. Now, I was gonna say, I think the other thing that it underscored for me was that my priorities had changed.
Mm.
Like I said, I had recently gotten married, had a baby, moved, and all of these different things. And my priorities as a single physician were very different than my priorities as a married mother physician. But I had not changed my schedule. My schedule was exactly the same. I was still trying to meet all those same demands that the single OBGYN had now that I was the married mother OBGYN.
Yeah, yeah. So you were, yeah, trying to meet those same demands, but now with like 3 times as much on your plate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, just the single OBGYN was enough.
Right,
The
right.
plate was full, right?
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah. So, when someone is looking at their current situation to determine if it's time for them to make a change, what may that look like? And what are you usually coaching, your clients on in terms of that?
Well, it's all about priorities. It's interesting that we're actually talking about that. It's really about taking time to look at your life and consider what your current priorities are. Because the priorities that you have in the past, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, may not be the same as the priorities that you have today. But if you're still, if your life is still scheduled and fashioned in such a way that it accommodates those previous priorities, it's going to create a discord in you and a dissatisfaction with your life. It's really about getting in touch with yourself and your authenticity and your truth. What are the things that are really important to you? Not what society says you should do or what society says you should be, but what do you, in your heart of hearts, really want for yourself?
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned priorities and how they may change because a lot of times too, we as we're human and we get stuck on saying, well, I was on this path to do this thing, especially as physicians, because
Right.
you've got this really detailed set in stone track and you're like, well, now, I can't pivot from that.
Right. I think too, we don't know what to do at that point
Mhm.
because, the road in medicine is so long and very prescribed. You 4 years of med school, however many years of residency, fellowship, whatever, then you're an attending. You have your script. If you're thinking about doing something different or even pivoting within the career, sometimes it feels like you're going off script and that it creates a lot of confusion. You don't know what to do.
Right, right. That's so true. But I like how you were saying, just even, breaking it down into bite size. So, as an entrepreneur, one of the things we look at are quarterly goals. So even looking
Yeah.
at your life and saying, well, this isn't what I'm still wanting to do. What I thought about in January is not looking so bright in September. So and feeling
Right.
free. Yeah, to
Right. And I
pivot.
think it's also about being open to the possibilities. And again, I'll be honest, it's not that I had this huge revelation about that initially. I happened to be, so, probably a year or so after that encounter on the beach, my practice went through some transitional changes. And it became clear that I needed to leave that practice. And so, really, prior to that, I thought I'd be with that practice my entire career because it was a practice where people stayed. You didn't go, people have been there 20 years, 10 years, 7 years, 5 years. And I love the practice, love my partners, love the patients. I thought that was going to be my story. But then when those changes came about and the practice really changed into something that was no longer congruent with my life, it forced me to take a look around and say, okay, well, this is ending. This, which I thought was going to be my life work, is ending. So, what are the possibilities? And
Yeah.
so, what seemed to be the worst thing at the time, actually, in hindsight, was probably the best thing because it freed me up to be able to see where I may have been limiting myself
Mhm.
in telling, by telling myself stories that just weren't true.
Right.
So I believe that I had to work full spectrum OBGYN in order to pay student loans. Well, that was a story I was telling myself. That wasn't
Right.
actual reality.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And mindset is everything when it comes to so much in life and those stories that we do tell ourselves. even, as a physician woman, you're highly intelligent, capable of so many things. And like you said, you still felt at that time in your mind that, well, I gotta, stay on this grind, is, doing this
Yeah,
work
yeah.
because I can't do anything else. But yeah.
Well, because you feel like there's so many expectations of you. You have there's the expectations you have of yourself. Then there might be family expectations. There's certainly societal expectations.
Mhm.
And, when you talk about doing something different, especially in medicine, people look at you funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. They do, right? Because it's like we're supposed to dedicate our whole lives, our everything, which we do a lot of the
Right.
time, to medicine, and whether we appreciate it for it or not, we do it because you have a heart for it. I always tell people we don't go into medicine for money because there are
Absolutely
so
not.
many other ways to make money.
Right.
So many less stressful
Without
ways.
spending six figures to get there, right?
Exactly. Right. Right. So you definitely have to have a heart for caring for people in that way to stick on this medical path.
You do. And also, like I said, you have to get in touch with your authenticity and your truth, because you have to be strong enough to withstand that criticism when it comes. Like I
Right.
said, when you think about doing something different, you're gonna encounter judgment, and some of it negative, and even some of it may be coming from you. But you have to, the desire for a different life and a different way of life has to be greater than your fear of change, I guess.
If you're frustrated with your weight, taking more medications than you like to, have been told that you are at risk for the development of a chronic preventable disease, or just are not feeling in the best of health, then I'm talking to you. Why? Because you're tired of fat dieting. You know it's time for a change, and you want a sustainable plan to improve your health. If you have found yourself at this place in life, well, I have developed a program that's just for you. It's called The Essence of Health, and it's your prescription for transformation. My goal with this program is to give you the tools needed to create sustainable lifestyle changes within a group coaching setting, along with one-to-one individualized coaching to give you a personalized path to health that's just for you. The benefits are priceless, so join today. Head on over to eohcoaching.com to learn more. The essence of health is in you. Part of the decision for career change is improving health and wellness. And, I had another podcast guest a few months ago who also pivoted from a career in the corporate business world, because she found that she had developed diabetes and her health had really gotten to a place where she was just not where she wanted to be, and considered that career change. So how does one create a self checklist for defining their wellness when they're looking at this career change?
Yeah, I think you have to figure out when you think about going to work, how does it make you feel? Because there's some people who, I've heard stories of people crying all the way to work, or they say things like, this job is crushing my soul.
Mm.
If there's no joy in the job and you're there out of obligation more than because you want to be there because of the contributions that you're making. If thinking of your job brings up more negative feelings inside than positive feelings, then it may be time for a change. Also, if you think about it from a personal development standpoint, is this a job where I can become my highest self, where I can attain the goals that I have for my life as an individual? And if the answer is no, then you may want to think about doing something else, because again, that situation is not going to contribute to you becoming all that you can be.
Right, right. Yeah, and those are definitely good points and good things to remember. And I know that one of the things that you provide for the individuals you work with are enriching retreats for wellness. So share with us how a timeout, that concept, can be just a reset one may need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, going back to my story, that time out on the beach was like a pivotal point for me, because again, I'd never really felt like I even had time to think about it until then. And I think it takes sometimes being away from the day-to-day demands to be able to hear your own voice. And so I do retreats for women. They're actually called a weekend for me, because I want it to
Love
be
that.
all about them. Sometimes I'll have people ask me, oh, can I bring my spouse? Can I bring my children? No, it's a weekend for me. The whole point
Right.
is to be
It's
able to
for
get away
you.
from to get away from your normal life, your normal responsibilities, and take time to check in with you. And so it gives you a space to think, to assess, to think about what's working, what's not working, what would I like to have more of in my life, what do I need to eliminate, and also gives you time for planning. You can start to, make goals. It gives you time for visioning. You can see where you want to go. And then once you are able to see where you want to go, then you can make a plan for getting from one place to the next.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And, it's funny that people would ask you, to bring their spouse or their kids, because, as a wife and a mom of 3 rambunctious boys, my husband and I have, sat back and laughed after vacations and be like, whew, we need a whole nother
Yeah, that's
vacation.
what,
This
no, no,
wasn't a
no, no.
vacation.
Listen, no, vacations with children are trips. That's not a vacation, it's a trip.
Exactly. It's a trip.
All you did was change the scenery, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it definitely would not be a retreat, rejuvenating experience to bring along the family.
No, but you know what? But it's hard for a lot of women to prioritize themselves in that way. And there are people that have asked me that question and have made the decision not to come because they didn't want to take time away from their families. And that's one thing that I hear a lot. And I know, people have limited vacation time,
Yeah.
and when they do, they want to be able to spend it with their family. But this is an investment in you, really. When you take time to do things that fill your cup, it's an investment in you, and tangentially an investment in your family. Because the better you are, the better you are able to take care of everybody else, to take care of your children, take care of your marriage, your community, your patients, whomever.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Because if we aren't at our best selves, then we truly aren't doing our best to take care of those other ones that we love. And then I like that you use the concept of timeout. Also, that mama, I
Yes.
put my boys in their fair share of timeouts. But we as adults, we don't think about needing that for ourselves too. Timeout
Right.
is restorative. You think about when you
Absolutely.
put your kid in timeout, you put them there so that they can have time to settle down, settle their mind, they can think, they can reset, and then come back
Yeah.
as a better version.
Yes, absolutely. And the beauty of the retreats too is that you're doing it in community, because again, a journey as a wife, a mother, professional can often be isolating. And you think that you're the only person who's feeling those feelings that you're having and dealing with the struggles that you may have. And being around other women who are having those same struggles gives you the validation too. I've had people who said to me, I've never done anything like this before. I've never done a girls' weekend or a girls' trip. And this was just so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine so. Because the other part too to adulting is that it's hard to find friends for one,
Right.
yeah, and then it's hard to find time to just have those, other.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Even if you have friends, it's hard to nurture those relationships because of
Right.
the time
Mhm.
constraints.
Yeah, yeah. So that community is great. Now, what strategies do you now employ for yourself to maintain a healthy work-life balance with your professional pivot?
Well, I'm actually non-clinical, so I'll start with that. I would say 95% non-clinical
Yeah.
at this point. I do see patients a few hours per week. But what I do in terms of self-care is I make a self-care plan, and I somewhat automate it. And so what I mean by that is I have standing appointments. So I have a standing appointment for a massage every 2 weeks. I have a standing appointment with my personal trainer twice a week. I try to make sure that I know in advance what my meals are going to be. I try to, have a certain water goal. So I actually write out plans for taking care of myself, for prioritizing my health. Now, I don't always stick to the plan, but
Yeah.
at least it's there and I'm
Right.
able to reference it, and it's there as a goal.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, especially with, having the standing appointments on your calendar, especially as someone who do lives by their calendar too. I know I always say if it's not on my calendar, it is not gonna happen. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's just as important for me. It's just as
yeah,
important that I do those things as it is that I go to the bank or,
Right.
make doctor's appointments. All of those things are taking anything that you do that takes care of you and helps to uplift you is self-care.
Yeah, yeah, it truly is. And I like that, you're prioritizing your health and wellness as a part of that. And, not just with the personal trainer, but you also got the massage there. So you got that
Yes.
relaxation piece there too.
And then also I schedule time with friends.
Uh-huh.
So I
That's
think
great.
that's important
Yeah.
too, because we talked about that. Now we've gotten a bit off track because I had a standing once a month time with my girlfriends,
Hmm.
but COVID's gotten that,
Yeah.
kind of mixed up. But
Yeah.
that's something that I have done in the past and that I hope to
Yeah.
resume.
Yeah, and that's a great idea too, just to keep and nurture those relationships that we talked about that, can be a challenge once we start adulting and, mothering and professional life
Yeah, yeah.
play into that mix. Yeah, yeah. Well, are there any last strategies or tips you would like to share or leave with the audience, Dr. Sherita?
Well, I guess, we hit on it a bit earlier. We talked about mindset. And really, I feel like mindset is the key to everything. If we don't have the right mindset, we don't believe that we can have a different life, that we can do different things, because we're going to believe those limiting beliefs that say, I can't do this, I can't have that, I have to keep doing it this way. So if there's one single best thing that people can do to begin to live with more authenticity, I would say it's work on your mindset. And you do that by testing your thoughts. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? If it doesn't fit those, that rubric, then think different thoughts. Because I say that one of the most freeing things for me was realizing that I could actually choose what I thought about. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, and they just kind of flood in, and I accepted many of them as my own thoughts. And a lot of them are negative and not helpful. And so when you learn to listen to what you're thinking about or think about what you're thinking about, you can start to shift it and change it and think about things that are more inspiring to you. And I think that is the beginning, to think, okay, at least consider the possibility that you could have something different, or at least consider what would I want? Like, if I could live with if it was all green lights, there were no limitations, what would I want my life to be?
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And that's definitely a great parting set of tips too for the audience. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Dr. Sherita, so how can my audience connect with you if they want to learn more, especially about that timeout retreat? How can they connect
Yes.
with you?
Okay. So A Weekend for Me is our signature event. I have an upcoming one in November. So it's actually, registration is open now, www.aweekendforme.com, November 2nd through 5th in Puerto Rico.
Oh,
So it is
nice.
going to be
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. The venue is beautiful. So, www.aweekendforme.com for the retreat information. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Sherita Gaskins-Tillett. Please DM if you have questions about things. If you're a female physician and you want to up-level your life and community, I do have the Level Up Lady Doc Facebook group. So you can also ask to join that group. We'd be happy to have you there. I have some other, social media spots,
Yeah.
Sherita Gaskins-Tillett everywhere for the most part.
Awesome. And I will put all of that in the show notes too. So, yeah, for those listening, you can definitely check out the show notes and grab those links and connect with Dr. Sherita. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for doing, this to spread wellness and self-care to the community.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Click the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a moment of the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Check out the show notes to obtain your free tips for healthy living guide to get you started on your health and wellness path. Follow me on social media at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and at dr.tw@EOHWC on TikTok. Interested in becoming a member of the Essence of Health coaching program? Well, head on over to www.eohcoaching.com. The essence of health is in you.